Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. Eileen, and this is Medicine Walk. And for those of you who are listening in on Blog Talk Radio, this is Healing House Radio. So I hope everyone has had a good week, and I hope our exploration of these topics are helpful. And if at any time there's a particular topic that you would like me to take a look at and to explore and to talk about, please feel free to leave it in the comments. So, I'm calling this episode Random Acts of Empathy. And that's based on an experience that I had very recently, where usually in the morning and it's quiet, and I walk my dog Sam down an old back road. And I ran across a gentleman who I had seen a few times, and his name is Steve. And he's a big guy, and so what he does for exercise is he walks down to the local market and gets a cup of coffee and walks back, and because he wants to get exercise and feel better. So today he kind of waved me over, and he asked me if I saw his gazebo, and I thought, what? And so he showed me, and I could see the roof of the gazebo, and he explained that he had built it and he had gotten it as a kit, and he was very proud of it. And he almost shyly said, well, if you'd like to take a look at it. Well, I could tell that in that moment, one, he wasn't thinking anything weird, and two, he really needed someone to see the effort that he had taken. So I said, well, I've got time now. Why don't we go look at it? And his face lit up. And as I followed him down, and, you kind of got to go down and, around a little bit. We do live on the mountains. And so I went to his gazebo and I saw it, and it is very sweet and it was very nice. And I could just feel from him that he was very proud of it and that he wanted to be acknowledged and have that seen. Hey, Luna. And so he talked about it, and I let him talk about it, say hello. And so, as I was talking to him and as I was telling him how nice I thought it was, and, what a good job he did on the corners and how everything kind of fit in together. And what I was doing while I was doing that was that I was transmitting. And what I was transmitting was, I'm proud of you. And I just had that sentence going in my head. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. And, I saw him stand up straighter, and he talked about all the work that he did on his property and that his house was paid off. And, this is a person who mostly just in passing, but in that moment, he needed to hear someone say, how good they thought his work was. And he showed me, we walked down by the river near his house. And then, we sat, and he had set up a picnic table. And so I talked to him about that and all the stuff that I saw. And the more, I acknowledged him, you could see this joy that was welling up in him. And at one point he finally just muttered, I just wanted somebody to see it. And I could feel his loneliness. And so, it was just so cool to be able to connect and see him go through that arc, because I'm sure it wasn't easy for him to go up to someone who he barely knew, who only, he had seen walking their dog, and invite them into his space. I mean, he didn't know what I was going to say. I might have said something, it's like, wow, that's, you really needed, it looks like it's tilting a little or whatever, but he had done a beautiful job on it. And to be able to witness that, to feel what he was feeling in that moment, that apprehension, and then as I encouraged him, feeling that pride swell up in him, and for him to be able to share the things that he did. And when I left, he told me, it's like, well, if you want to go sit in my gazebo at any time, you can do that. And that's one of the really cool things about being empathic, is that you can get to experience things with people and to be able to share things on a much deeper level. Because I think everybody reaches a point where they just want to be heard, they want to be understood, they want someone to share a moment with them. And a lot of times people don't pick up on that. And, maybe, I could have just said, well, another time, and kept walking. But because of the ability to connect with what it was he was going through, because it had nothing to do with what he said, it had nothing to do with, anything he put out, visually or whatever. It was all energetic. And being able to understand that in that moment, I knew exactly what he needed and how I could help him. And I did help him. And when I left, he was very happy and very proud that he had, had his work acknowledged, and that, I pointed out particular things that I really liked. And he would tell me about his work, and, that his house was, he goes, well, and I just got it paid off, so it's all mine. And that was a big thing for him, for, a retired gentleman. So it kind of hit me that for people to understand that as an empath, we really can help people. We can connect to them on a level that most people don't get to experience. And it's also about being able to, be in a space with someone, to be in a moment with someone. Because when you can feel what they're feeling, you can tell, wow, this person needs a little bit of extra attention, or maybe I need to, just take a moment with this individual. Because, the thing is that had I walked away, had I just said, well, maybe another time, I got things to do, somebody who wasn't empathic might not notice the hurt maybe that he felt, maybe the loneliness he felt. And because I'm sure he would have just said, oh, okay, another time then. But being empathic means that we can be able to see beyond what people, maybe what the mask that they're holding up. Because everybody has a mask. Everybody has that face that they show. Being empathic means that we are gifted to be able to see past the mask. That we can be able to be there for people even when they haven't even reached a point where they can ask for that help, where they can ask for that connection. And it took maybe a total of about 15-20 minutes out of my morning. And it was well worth it, because what I left with was being able to feel what he felt, to feel that appreciation, to feel acknowledged, to feel validated, and to feel so grateful that someone took their time with him. And when you feel someone else's gratitude, that is amazing. It is wonderful. Yes, we have to deal with a whole lot of emotions, and it's important to be able to block them out and to keep a perspective on what it is that we want to do, and to keep boundaries. And sometimes it's nice to let those boundaries drop a little bit, to just allow yourself to connect, to allow yourself to be present with someone, especially when they really, really, really need it. Now, can you do that for everyone? No. And it becomes a decision and a conscious choice of, okay, in this moment, how much can I give? In this moment, can I take an extra 15-20 minutes to listen to what someone has to say? And one of the main things that I find is that people, they want to be able to know that someone is proud of something that they did, that they are able to be acknowledged, that they're able to be recognized. And I had one situation where I left an event, and I was walking along, and there was a woman walking her dog, and just hello, hello. And I stopped because there was just this immediate pull in her. And I turned around and I said, "Excuse me." And she turned around, and I said, "I'm proud of you." And she looked at me and she said, "Why would you say that?" And I said, "Well, maybe you need to hear it right now." And her eyes filled with tears, and she grabbed me and she hugged me, and she said that she needed to hear those words more than anything else in the world right in that moment. And so we stood and we talked about that and what she had been going through, and the hard stuff. And she kept saying, "How did you know? How did you know?" And I explained to her what it means to be empathic. I said, there was something in you that just reached out and let me know that there was something you needed. And so these are very, very, very special moments. And while we do have to be careful and we do have to be aware of what it is that we're experiencing, and what it is that we are, um, well, not so much giving and receiving, but how we're connecting. We resonate with others. That's what empathy is, and we've talked about this. Empathy is resonance. And the idea that, yes, you can create a resonance with someone, and it isn't about violating their personal space. It isn't about going after any secrets that they might have, or creating an advantage. That goes into the shadow side of transmission. When you can have somebody know that they can trust you, and that you're just there with them. And it's just wonderful to be able to utilize empathy. I mean, because it knocks, it lets itself, it's kind of an alarm that goes off, maybe like a perimeter alarm or a proximity alarm or something. It's sort of like, if a car moves too close to something, now the car will beep. Well, in a way, it's sort of like that, because you could be walking next to someone and immediately get that feeling of, oh, they're really going through something. Oh, Luna, you're being fidgety. So that idea that you have a way of being able to perceive the people around you in a much more direct way, and there may be a room full of people, and you'll find yourself, okay, just don't be fussy. And you'll find yourself drawn to a particular person. And I mean, it's what they're feeling has to do with their story. So if their story is something that you might be able to help with, maybe they just need to be seen, maybe they just need to be noticed, maybe there's something that they need to get off their chest, or maybe they need to hear that someone is proud of them. And it's an opportunity and it's also an opportunity to practice, being able to gauge your empathy. If you perceive someone, or if someone starts to resonate very strongly with you, you don't have to immediately interact, and you don't have to interact at all. I mean, it's a call that went out. You don't have to answer it. And if it's an opportunity where you can, maybe you just sit and observe them for a few minutes. Take the empathy to the next level, you do that just by kind of relaxing yourself. Now, just doing the practices where you put your hand up against a tree and then relax. And it really is about going into a relaxed state, that, you just sit and you just touch, and, you're able to connect in a good way. And it's tough, and it's tricky, but once you start connecting with different things, and that's why I usually say start off with things like plants and stones and earth, and animals. I mean, animals are awesome. And Luna here, she is, both Luna and Sam. They're really great because the best thing about animals is that when they need something, and they will sit and look at you and just transmit that need. They're empathically very open. So when you develop your empathy, you can be able to resonate with them. And they don't come with stories attached. Animals don't create story. Their life is what it is in that moment, whether it's a good moment or a bad moment. That's their experience. They don't bring in really a lot of other stuff. So once you reach the point of being able to interact with people and working on that resonance with people, again, relax, take a breath, and then all you're doing is you're expanding that energy out. Some people picture it like, maybe a circle, like, circles, almost like a ripple effect that just kind of pulses outward and connects with, with the energies of other people, emotions are the main way that energy is transmitted through non-spoken communication. And so, we deal based on someone's emotions and based on someone's, what they're going through in that moment. That dictates where their energy is. So if you find someone who maybe just needs to be acknowledged, I've had cases where someone will seem kind of down, and I'll just walk by, and I was in a restaurant with a friend, and I just looked at a woman who had her hair braided beautifully. And see, that's the thing. It has to be honest. And I said, "Excuse me, but your hair is absolutely stunning. That is really beautiful. The way it's braided and, the colors that are in it." And she looked up and she said, "Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much." I was in a store, and one of the cashiers, there was something there. And so I complimented her hairstyle. And I said, "Wow, that hairstyle really compliments your face." And she looked up, and, immediately it's like, "Well, I mean, I just kind of threw it up." And I said, "Well, it really does." I said, "That's a very nice style for you." And it doesn't take a lot to make someone's day. And as long as what you're saying is honest, and, it doesn't cross boundaries, I always make sure that, a compliment is neutral. It does not invite. It's merely an observation. And, I transmit that. I am in this moment with you, and this is what I'm giving you. But I don't allow an attachment, because you can feel the energy coming back to create an attachment. But, I don't allow that. And it does not take away from the fact that they were told something nice and they were touched by it. So keep in mind that the more you practice with your empathy, the more you'll be able to, and, it's a practice of transmitting and receiving at the same time. It creates a connection, and you control the connection. You make sure that there's nothing that is attached to it. And it does take practice. It takes a lot of practice. And it's not as hard as you think. Once you get into that place of connecting, and then just picture it as, like a tide that comes in and goes out and comes in, and, it's just the flow of the energy. They go in waves, and as those waves move, you can catch that wave. And what you do with it, maybe there's nothing for you to do with it. Maybe you just simply give that thought projection. I'm proud of you. You're going to be all right. You've got this. And, in some cases, you'll see the person kind of, although they don't know what's happened, but something is shifted. Suddenly, maybe their shoulders drop and they stand a little bit straighter. And I've seen this happen. And it's really amazing to be able to interact with people on that level. and to be able to help them calm down. There's been cases where I've dealt with people who were in crisis moments or having an anxiety attack or being very upset. And in those cases, being able to create a connection with someone is like giving them a lifeline. It's like, tossing them a life preserver with a rope on it. They can hold on to it until they can stabilize themselves, until they can get through that moment, but they're not alone in the moment, and they understand that they're not alone in it. So, especially in dealing with people who experience anxiety, you can be able to bring them, at least give them a safe place for them to be able to manage it, and then their own tools take over. But you can create an eye of the storm for them. And once they're at that point where it's like, okay, it's peaked and now it's fading, then you draw back. But in that moment, you can have them not just have that safe place, but someone they can trust in it with them to be able to help them through it. So yeah, these are a little bit more advanced. And once you do get the basics down, these are wonderful things to start practicing with. You don't have to say anything to anyone, but you can still connect and transmit something very good, something very supportive, something that they won't know came from you. Or some people who are very sensitive, they'll suddenly look over at you and smile. And I've had that happen where, it's just that all of a sudden, and then they just turn and they lock onto me and they'll smile, and, and I'll smile back, and that's it. So when you consider using empathy as a part of a way to nurture, as a part of a way for someone to feel acknowledged, as a part of a way for someone to feel like they're not alone, just always consider exactly how you want that interaction to be worked. How much energy are you going to put into it? You don't have to put a lot. It can just take very little. And, it's important to be able to know where those lines are drawn. You don't want to draw someone in. You don't want to have them, suddenly get attached, and, the guy could have been like, whoa, why don't you come in for some coffee? Or why don't you do this? Or keep me there talking. I could feel the point where he had been acknowledged enough, and he had been encouraged enough, and he had been witnessed enough. And I just, that's when I just closed down that connection. And as soon as I did, he said, well, I shouldn't keep you, but thank you so much for, talking to me. And it's really amazing how once you close down the connection, the natural conclusion of the conversation happens. And suddenly it's like, oh, okay, but it's a gentle release. It's not an abrupt release. So if you'd like to know more about this, and I know that, as I said, this is a bit more advanced, but I wanted to share this experience so that you could kind of, take a look at things, things to come, and abilities that you will one day be able to master. And it's, just a part of living as an empath. You grow in it, it expands, and the more you work with it, the more you, practice with it, the more you experiment with it, the more it's going to grow. And it will reach the point where even talking on the phone with someone, you'll be able to create that empathic connection, even though they're somewhere else, or maybe someone, needs a little bit of extra encouragement, and you're not even on the phone with them, and you can just feel it and you send it. So, work with it, because it's very worthwhile to learn how to master. Because once you do, there's a whole amazing world that opens up. So, thank you for joining me. And if you like this video, please press like. And if you have any questions, comment. And if you have as I said, if you have a topic that you would like me to cover, then please leave it in the comments. For those of you who are listening in on Blog Talk Radio, I invite you to use the link that's there and visit the YouTube page. And if you would like to support the channel at a higher level, then you can subscribe. I'm working on building up to my first 100 subscribers. And if you really want to, assist the channel on a much higher level than that, then you can follow the link to my Patreon account and become a sponsor of the channel. So, again, thank you for joining me. And as always, I wish you balance and I wish you blessings from my heart to yours. Love you and take care.